with openness and honesty and not being pushed aside, because oftentimes, service desk has the stigma of, oh, those guys.
Welcome everyone to the next episode of the Leena AI podcast. Today I have an esteemed guest, Joseth, who is the Deputy CIO and Chief Information Security Officer at the Office of Comptroller, the City of New York. Welcome and thank you so much for taking the time, Joseth.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So one thing I'm very curious to know, Joseth, is what do you do? Right? We've heard a lot about, especially information security and the importance of information security and privacy when you work with governments. But
Mhm.
I'd love to know, like, what do you do? What are your top priorities, and how does a day look
Mhm.
like in your life?
Sure. So I wear two hats at the agency. So I'm the Deputy CIO, Chief Information Security Officer, and the CISO. And so, my role or my responsibilities is to ensure that the day-to-day operations of the office flows smoothly. On the IT operations, when the user come into the office, do they have access to the resource they need to do their jobs efficiently and effectively, internet access, as well as the networking side of it. And I always say without IT, there's no operations, right? And so making sure that the network infrastructure is secure, making sure that the policies, the monitoring are in place. And the key part of my role here is the service desk. I always say that the service desk is my eyes and my ears. They are the first line of defense here at the agency. They let me know if something is brewing, what's going on. And so my team rely heavily on the service desk to filter out any issues. Lastly, I'm also responsible for the telecommunications group as well. And so that is the iPhones, the iPads, the desk phones, the VoIP phones, the soft phones. And so my role here in the agency is making sure that, the day-to-day operations of this agency functions efficiently. Because at the end of the day, if users or staff is not able to access the resource in order to do their jobs, then it could become a real disaster quickly.
So you keep them running, basically.
Yeah, basically, with a whole group of team, not by myself, but with a whole group of team. Yeah, yeah.
Lovely, Seth. Lovely. So tell us more. So a lot of the listeners of this podcast
Mhm.
are people are CIOs and VPs of IT who are interested in knowing, your service desk, because you mentioned that they're your eyes and your ears. And I'd love
Mhm.
to know, like when you say that, what do you mean? Like, is it that okay, I try to grasp any bigger problems from the service desk? Is that what I mean? I'd love
Mhm.
to know more from you, Joseph.
Yeah, so the service desk is always the group of people that would hear if there's something brewing, right? So they might get a call about one particular issue, and then they get a second and third call, and they'll say, Josette, we see something going on that we may need to have more eyes on. And so before it becomes a firestorm, you know, based on their feedback, we able to put that fire out pretty quickly. And so that's what I mean when I say they're my ears and my eyes, knowing that they could come to me with openness and honesty and not being pushed aside. Because oftentimes, service desk has the stigma of, oh, those guys don't know what they're talking about. All they do is take phone calls, but they actually do know what they're talking about. Because of what they do, we're able to, get ahead of any situation or any issues that may be coming up within our agency. So that's what I mean about them being my eyes and my ears.
Very interesting. So it's like you get to know of a big fire when it is just a spark, right?
Yeah,
Usually
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of
Mhm.
sense. Amazing. So can you tell us a bit about the structure of this team? Like how have you structured, like how many people are L0, L1, L2? Like is that a structure you follow the SLAs, etc.?
Sure. So we have different SLAs on our service desk. Obviously, if it's a senior level staff, they get high priority service. But we try to resolve the issues on the service desk within a couple of hours. If the service desk themselves analysts themselves are not able to resolve the issue at that point, then we have escalations. We have escalations to the IT operations team, depending on the issue. So for example, if it's an Office 365 issue or SharePoint issue or OneDrive issues, it goes to operation. If it's, I'm having problems because, my machine is not booting up, that's something that the service desk could handle. If they're getting blocked on the firewall because they try to go to an unrestricted site, or restricted site, I should say, then that goes into the networking team to find out, like, why are you trying to go to a site in a country that is prohibited? And so it depends. So we have different escalations within my particular group.
Amazing, amazing. And do you use like a help desk tool for managing all of this, or
Yeah,
like,
we
yeah,
do. Yeah, we do. We actually, it's actually a homegrown tool. We used to use ServiceNow, and then we kind of got away from ServiceNow. Not because of any operational issues, but the tool that we use is a homegrown tool that allows us to track, it allows us to report, it allows us to tell me how long a ticket has been open, whom the ticket is assigned to, what's the resolution of the ticket. So actually, on a monthly basis, I do a report out or presentation to the senior level management, telling them about our service desk stats, who has the highest call assigned to them and how long a call has been taken to resolve, and why is a particular call still in the queue unresolved if that's the case. So yeah, so it's a homegrown tool that we currently using.
amazing. And so people are mostly calling in, or they're also sending emails and like,
Yeah, no, they call in, they send emails. We are running still in a hybrid mode of COVID, as a result of COVID, I should say. So we still get calls, we get emails, we even get walk-ins sometimes. But so it's a variety of those three methods.
got it, got it. And then your team would help solve their problems. Makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
So, like overall, like a big theme in this industry today, in IT operations and especially the service desk, Joseph, is around employee experience, right? How
Mhm,
do you deliver the right employee experience? Uh, like, how do you get as proactive as possible? How do you, solve their problems as quickly
mhm.
as quickly as possible? So, what are some of the things that you were doing? Actually, first, let me try and back up and ask you, how do you measure it today? Like, what would employee experience, when I say the employee experience is good, bad, or ugly, what is the measure of that? Like, do you have like, do you do any calculation? Is it ENPS? Like, is there something around that? That's the first question. And the second is, like, how do you improve it, or what are the ways that you're thinking of improving that in the future, to transform end user experience overall?
So that's a great question. So we don't have an official tool that measure employee satisfaction, as you would call it. But one of the things that we do, that I don't actually do it, but the department heads would do surveys amongst their group to find out, how has IT service, been for them. And the deputy comptroller or the department heads would report back into us. So it's kind of unsolicited responses on how do we measure. But one of the things that I really take pride in is, when a new employee starts, right, their first day one, we want to make sure that they get the experience that they should get because it's a new environment, they're not sure. So what I have the service desk do is that I have them give them an overview of our entire infrastructure, meaning that, how do you log in when you are from home? How do you set up your MFA? What resources do you need? What additional apps do you need on your phone? So when they walk in the door at the service desk to pick up their equipment, they go through, how to access emails remotely, what are the do's and don'ts? You cannot access Outlook on your personal devices. You cannot access Citrix on your personal devices. It's all corporate issue devices. And so those are the things that we talk to them about. So when they leave the service desk area and they go back to their desk or they have to work remotely the following couple of days, they have that information. So they don't feel lost. And so I think that's one good way to measure the success of the service desk and the success of employees really, staying on. Because if you start day one and there's no one around to help you, you're going to be like, what kind of place is this? I'm getting out of Dodge, kind of thing. So that's the one thing that, that we try to do, is to ensure that when a new employee is onboarded, and there's different several levels of onboarding here, but when they come to the IT department to get their equipment, they need to understand, what does it mean when I'm at home, when I'm working remotely? Can I, travel outside of the country and log in remotely? And so we go over all of those things with them, just to ensure that they're educated on what are the do's and don'ts of this agency.
That makes a lot of sense. So you basically are investing at the top when someone joins, or when you
Mhm.
give them devices and tell them all about hardware, software, instead of having them go back, try things on their own, and then getting stuck somewhere.
Right.
I actually like the idea, because I don't see a lot of corporate doing that. I understand that this is heavy in terms of investment at the top, but I think it could
Mhm.
have a much better ROI, because that person will not have the questions unless, and they will end up be coming to the help desk or the service desk again and again. So
Exactly. Exactly.
that's pretty insightful, just as a unique thing that our listeners are getting to learn today. So, like any transformational projects that you've undertaken in the last, 5 years or 10 years,
Mhm.
that is, because a lot of people who are listening to this are under, everyone is under budgetary pressure, right?
Right.
Everyone wants more efficiency out of IT service desk, out of IT operations. Everyone's
Mhm.
want better experience, right? So
Mhm.
any ideas you have explored, or any transformations that you've already done, or ideas you have explored over the last few years, that could tell
Mhm.
us, that could give some ideas, a few starting points to the listeners of this podcast.
Yeah, so, COVID was really an eye-opening for a lot of people, right? We were 100% on premise. We had all of our solutions were on premise, Exchange on-prem. Our file servers were on-prem, still are on-prem, but it was really eye-opening for us. And so one of the things that I was challenged with was the day before this office decided to go remote was, okay, we need to ensure that users still, our staff still had the ability to function while they're at home, and not just function by just logging in and clocking in their time, but still continue to do the day-to-day of this office. You have a group that manages the five pension fund of the city, of all city agency. And so how are they going to continue to do their work? You have a group that audits, a lot of the city agencies. How are they going to continue to do their work? You have the general counsel's office that still need access to data. And so we had to quickly, we were actually in the mid of doing this, but we expedited the migration to Office 365, and we expedited the migration to OneDrive and SharePoint Online. And I think if we had not done that, we would have been in similar situations where some agencies were not able to log in and do work. And because of the technology we already had a remote access environment that had the capacity to handle 700 employees. So that was one of the transformation that we did, a couple of years before COVID hit. We had already started the migration from on-premise Exchange to Exchange online.
Nice.
We had already started the migration of key folders from our file storage to SharePoint Online. And with all of that, now as the CISO, now I'm starting to think about, okay, I need to ensure that, these folders are, have policies that users are not just downloaded, you know, gigs of data on their personal device. And so now I have to
Yep.
start looking at restricting access, and as now start have to looking at what type of software do the users have on their home laptop. We now need to restrict, add in conditional access to prevent users from using their own personal devices. And so that was really transformational for me and my group, because not only were we able to continue to serve the constituents of the city of New York, we were also able to protect the intellectual property of this agency, which is key for us. So that was really transformational for myself and my team. And the previous comptroller was in awe of how quickly we were able to get the office up and running, because he was getting calls about not being able to access, other agencies were not being able to get their work done. And so I was fielding calls from other, sister agencies, to get ideas about what did we do, how did we do it. And so that was really transformational for me and my team. I think as we continue to move more resources to the cloud, in addition to protecting that data with policies in place, we also need to protect that data in terms of like backup. So what happens if one of the big guys have a breach, or one of the big guys experience an issue? How do we protect our data? Are we protecting our data online? And so that's something that we are now starting to look at, protecting our data online, so that we are not 100% relying on these, our business partners. While they are excellent, while they're good at what they do, I always look at a solution as, or a particular solution that we're trying to implement. Can we do this without them? And so, we're looking at backing up data online, in case something big happens. We need to be held accountable as well. We can't say, oh, this vendor has an issue and we can't access the data. No, we need to be able to say, okay, the vendor has an issue, but we could restore back on-prem, if necessary, or we could spin something else up if necessary, and continue to do the job that we are here to do.
I think this makes a lot of sense. First of all, congratulations on running that transformation when
Mhm.
COVID hit. So, great to hear, and I'm sure it's going to be insightful for folks who are listening in on this. But I think this is the first time I'm hearing someone saying that, what, like they're good at what they do, or all of our business partners, the big guys, right? Uh, but at the end of the day, it's also our own responsibility to make sure that business keeps running when there's an
Yeah.
goes wrong, right? And I love that thought, because I think our reliance as organizations, even ours at Leena AI, on business partners is 100% today, right? If some big guy goes down, our cloud partners go down, our email partners go down, then you're absolutely right. We won't be able to survive. We won't be able to serve our customers, and
Hmm.
you won't be able to serve your constituents in a way where
Hmm.
we should be thinking, and we should be hedging against the probability. I know the probability of that happening is very low, but you should be hedging against that as
Right.
a. And I think that's a very good takeaway for everyone who is listening in on this podcast. So, moving on, Joseph, like a bunch of leaders here would want to know about your future roadmap
Hmm.
for transformation as well. Like I spend a lot of time with CIOs, CEOs, and generative AI is a big term that people are talking
Right.
about. I know you told me before we started recording this, about the mandates that are coming in from the city of New York, and maybe on AI. So maybe, tell us a bit about that.
Hmm.
I spend a lot of time, so I know everyone's excited. People are coming to us and saying that, on the help desk area as well, because we do a lot of help desk automation, right? So if like there are
Hmm.
1,000 tickets coming in, we help you reduce that by 70%, right? So
Hmm.
uh, people are like, if earlier I had to go and educate people. Like a year ago, I had to go and educate people on, this is
Hmm.
AI, this is what we can do for you. And now, people are like forming up a line to, buy or looking for solutions like this, right? So
Hmm.
I'd love to know more about this from you. Like, what is the future roadmap?
Hmm.
What are your thoughts? And, what are different mandates that the city has taken,
Hmm.
towards AI in general?
Yeah. So, when the conversation of AI first started buzzing, I kind of equated it to moving to the cloud. Because if you remember years ago, that was the big buzz, moving to the cloud, moving to the cloud. And, you know, I, I think we as technologists, right? We as, folks who really lead agencies and lead companies, we really need to take a look at, and the same due diligence and I'm going to speak for myself, the same due diligence that I put into um, reviewing, evaluating cloud technologies, making sure that they are cater towards the government base, and making sure that the rules are in place for government agencies. What happens if our data is in outside of the US? And so those are all of the things that I questioned, and I asked question, and I asked for proof. I think that same method should be applied to AI. So everyone is like, it's the candy in the room, it's the bright shiny object in the room. Everyone wants to get in the bandwagon. And so when I am asked, we want to do something with AI, what can we do with AI? I always follow up with, well, what is the business justification for this? What are the business justification, and what are the governance behind the framework? What policies do we need to have in place? And so before we start looking at, bringing in AI technology, and AI is an umbrella, right? It's an umbrella for a lot of things. But before we start thinking about, how can I use AI in our contracts area, or AI in another area within our agency, like what is the business use? What is the business case? What problem do we have right now that we're trying to solve, that we don't have the resources in-house to solve it, or we don't have the resource in-house to mine that data, that we think AI could do the job? And I've asked that question every time that it's been presented to me. Like, what is the business use case? Because once you define that business use case, then you could build out. So in
Yep.
terms of the cloud technology, what was the business use case for us to go into cloud? Well, it was a cost savings. We didn't have to update the servers. Its availability. Users could access email, from anywhere in the world, provided that we had conditional access allowed. And so that's where I'm focused on. What is the business case that you're trying to solve that we're not able to do with humans, right? And once I have that business case, okay, then let's look at the framework. Let's look at the technology. Let's look at, our external business partners. How can we bring them in to help us with, whatever tool that we need? And I think that's the focus of where it should be. It's great that people putting pictures out of what they would look like in 20 years, right? Oh my goodness, I haven't aged a bit. But the industry needs to like recenter themselves, and think of, am I solving a problem, or am I creating a problem? Because behind that is also security risk.
Yep.
That's one of the things I had to look at as well. What are the risks for us, or what are the risks in general in implementing a tool that is AI oriented, and opening up other issues? And I just did a presentation earlier today about how the cyber breach has increased
Yep.
with large and small companies. And why is that? That's because a lot of our technologies are in the cloud. And so, you have to, as a IT leader, have to now consider, okay, we have our technologies in the cloud. We are relying on the big companies, but what are we doing to protect ourselves? And it's the same thing with AI. What are we going to do to protect ourselves? What technologies do we need to have in place? Because no one knows right now. It's just like I said, it's a shiny object in the room. Everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon, but let's have an intelligent conversation. Let's bring the people who are talking about this into the room with the business case, so we could best serve our constituents. And that's
That makes
that's my take on it.
that makes a lot of sense, Joseph. Thank you so much. So, like, I think one question though. So, out
Mhm.
of let's say 10 people who come to you about using AI, how many of them are actually able to make a business case?
They're not. They're
Okay.
not, right? They're not.
Right.
It's just that I everyone is talking about AI, and like, what can we do with it? And I'm like, well, I need to know what the business case is. Like, what is the business
Love it.
case?
Love
So
it. So,
I don't know
this
how
makes
many people are asking that question, but that's my first
they're
question.
not. They're not. You're absolutely right, Joseph. And I think this has been by far a big pain point for us as well, right? See, we've been
Mm-hmm.
in the industry selling and doing virtual assistants or, employee Jarvis or Siri, whatever you want to call it, right? Since the last 7, 8 years now. We were doing this when it was not cool at all, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think at that time there was a bigger push towards, customers asking us that, okay, what is the ROI of this? And in the last 1 year, because the AI is hyped so much that the
Mm-hmm.
conversation ROI has just fallen down, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
I was to 100 people, all of them would ask, like at least 70 would ask me about ROI before generative AI or before the chat GPT phenomena
Mm-hmm.
happened, right? And post that, it is just so cool right now to be just to say that I'm using AI, right, or using generative
Mm-hmm.
AI, that people are just stopped. Like right now, out of 100, like less than 25 people are asking us about the ROI, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a little crazy if you think about it, right? Because now using LLMs and generative AI, finally AI has a promise to deliver ROI, right? Ask me.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this. I've been using AI to deliver business value for enterprises, right? To do help desk and IT and HR help desk automation, right? It
Right.
was harder to do that earlier. It's now way easier. I can create a business case and I can prove you 70% saving, right? But people are just
Mm-hmm.
not asking, right, anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they do use cases that make no sense, that should not be using AI in, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
like it's just become so cool, like a normal SaaS company, which is probably doing calendar booking, is now saying that we are an AI company. So I think it's also the buzz, it's also the market demand all put together in
Mm-hmm.
one box. Probably, but I think it always happens. I think it's a hype cycle. It will go down and then it will kind of stabilize, and people will start making more sense then.
Right. Right. Agreed. Agreed.
Perfect, Joseph. So, thank you so much for taking our time and speaking with us today. I'm very sure that our listeners have enjoyed this and have some very, very good insights and ideas on what they can do to better manage their IT operations, service desk, and keep their businesses running and growing as well. So, thank you so much, and
Thanks for
looking
having
forward.
me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.